proving general relativity emerges from braided infinity, uses only init imports, zero mathlib, zero axioms, zero sorry. Wow. How is that for an absolutely audacious opening statement? This is a direct quote pulled from the very first lines of a deeply fascinating, honestly esoteric piece of source code we're looking at today. I mean, it's not every day you see a programmer attempting to derive the fundamental laws of physics using pure logic. Absolutely no foundational assumptions or axioms, and zero mathematical shortcuts. Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a mathematical multiverse in what we're calling the code as cosmology. We are going to explore a completely unique set of files written in the Lean programming language. But look, this isn't your standard software. This source code attempts to bridge programming syntax, theoretical physics, and even Gnostic theology into one cohesive, computable universe. It is a staggering intellectual exercise, and we're going to look strictly at what the author has laid out in these files, decoding their digital universe step by step. Okay, let's dive right into this. So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll explore the Zero Axiom Universe. Second, decoding the superstring witness. Third, the cosmic radiation wall. And finally, math without singularities. Let's start with Section 1, the Zero Axiom Universe, building reality from scratch. To really wrap our heads around this source code, we have to understand how it defines its most fundamental rules without relying on pre-existing mathematical libraries. It all kicks off with a foundational structure defined in the code as braided infinity. According to the source, this is a mathematical structure featuring a modulus that essentially loops back on itself. Think of it as the foundational engine for this entire computational universe. Instead of an open-ended, infinite straight line, the mathematics here operate on a closed loop, constantly braiding back into its own structure. Now, the code builds upon that looping foundation to describe physical reality by introducing an information carrier. It assigns two key values to this carrier: capacity, which is the total data storage available, and entropy, which represents the disorder, or essentially the used-up space in the system. The code explicitly states that the entropy can never exceed the total capacity. But here is where the logic takes a truly fascinating leap. The code includes a function that simply subtracts the entropy from the capacity to calculate what it calls waste. And this right here brilliantly illustrates the core computational metaphor of this universe. In literally the very next line of the Lean code, a function is defined called gravitational curvature. And what's the exact definition of gravitational curvature in the system? It's identical to waste. The source code equates gravity simply as the leftover, unutilized data capacity of the universe's information carrier. So gravity isn't a mysterious pulling force here, it's mathematically defined as computational waste. Moving right along to Section 2, decoding the superstring witness, the anatomy of the cosmos. Having defined gravity, the code now goes on to construct the specific dimensions of this universe, using a highly unusual structure named the cost algebra axis. The code explicitly assigns values to an incredibly bizarre and fascinating list of variables to build this axis. We've got 3 bool faces, 2 for bisided, 3 temporal, 1 vacuum, 1 Kleinemann, and 0 for both gauge and doubled octagon. This is a wildly unique blend of geometric terminology and Gnostic philosophy, all being treated as strict mathematical integers by the programming language. Now, the crucial point here is what happens when you add all those specific variables together. They total exactly 10, and in the logic of this source code, the number 10 is absolute magic. The code introduces a structure called anomaly-free, which mandates that for the universe to be consistent, the dimensions must be exactly 10 or 11. By specifically engineering those strange variables to add up to exactly 10, the author achieves what the code proudly labels the superstring witness. It's a mathematically verified state, proving the manifold is stable within the rules the coder just invented. Let's jump into Section 3, the cosmic radiation wall. Boundaries of the manifold. We're shifting gears now from a file called Grand Unification over to one titled Cosmic Infinity. Here, the author actually maps out the very edges of their observable universe. The code defines a function called the cosmic braid and assigns it a highly specific modulus resolution unit, 360. Just like the 360 degrees of a circle, this number represents the absolute limit, the full revolution of this particular universe's geometry. This 360-unit resolution directly feeds into what the code calls the event horizon principle. According to the source, in this specific topology, a braided infinity signature functions as an impassable boundary. You can't see beyond it, but not because your telescope isn't strong enough.
It's because the topological braid simply returns to its own identity, effectively closing the manifold. Looking past it is mathematically impossible because past it literally doesn't exist. It just loops back.
And all of this culminates in one of the code's most staggering claims. A theorem is written explicitly formalizing an identity between cosmic background radiation and this braided infinity. The code neutrally, but very firmly, asserts that cosmic radiation isn't just an afterglow of the Big Bang. Rather, it's an impassable wall of actualized infinity. The code concludes that to look past this radiation wall is simply to look into the next iteration of the exact same braid.
Bringing us to our final stop, Section 4, Math Without Singularities, Theological Stability. We are now entering a file explicitly named theologicalstability.lean. This is where theoretical astrophysics forcefully collides with Gnostic theology, all mediated by strict algebraic proofs. The primary objective of this file is to establish a monolithic origin. It defines a constant called God's position. The code maps this to a monolithic principle, framing it almost like a digital commandment that there can be no other rival origins of infinite density. In this closed, braided universe, there is exactly one actualized infinity allowed. To actually enforce this theological rule mathematically, the author introduces what is termed the grand reduction law. This law treats all of existence as a deeply pragmatic, debt-managed manifold. It weighs the cosmic budget, represented by a capital R, against cosmic debt, represented by a lowercase v.
To maintain this stability, the code uses a specific equation it calls God weight. Basically, the realized weight of any point in the universe equals the budget minus the debt plus 1. The absolutely crucial rule here is that in a stable manifold, debt can absolutely never exceed the budget. The system simply won't compute it.
So let's walk step by step through how this completely excludes the existence of black hole singularities. First up, imagine a system reaching the maximum possible density in this universe. In the code's terms, this is when debt exactly equals the budget. Second, the God weight equation automatically kicks in. Third, because budget minus a debt of the exact same size obviously equals 0, the density resolves exactly to plus 1. The code calls this original plus 1 the Klineman. Therefore, infinite density is mathematically impossible here. The author describes the whole concept of a singularity as an archintonic deception, a failure to account for the strict budget barrier of the manifold. Every black hole just hits the budget limit and safely resolves back to 1.
And this perfectly captures the philosophical endgame of the entire project. The theological stability file concludes with this exact, incredibly simple Boolean variable. There is only the one equals true. It's a flawless, uncompromising logical assertion that perfectly concludes this wild fusion of theological stability and mathematical reduction. The code successfully proves its own internal reality without ever throwing an error. Which leaves us with a rather massive thought to ponder. We've explored a digital structure today that models gravity as computational waste, dimensions as a mix of geometry and spirit, and boundaries as impassable looping braids of actualized infinity. If, as this incredibly unique source code suggests, the universe can be perfectly modeled as a zero axiom computational topology with a strict cosmic budget, are we simply lines of code executing our functions within the cosmic braid? It's a question that stretches the very limits of logic, physics, and reality itself. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Keep wondering and keep learning.